again, devoted a room in the back of his house to the study of electricity. And here's a factoid for you that kind of blows my mind still. Ramon Avellanal had one of the first 5 U.S. patents accepted by the government for turn signals on automobiles, developed right here in Ybor City. You should find that terribly ironic if you've ever driven in Florida, because nobody uses the turn signals till to this day. But a Spanish immigrant created the turn signal accepted patent by the government. So he tinkers with electricity. In 1903, 10 years after the World's Fair, he gives birth to his final child, a boy named Jose Luis Avellanal, who almost immediately started exhibiting extremely strange behavior. At the age of 5, 6, 7 years old, right here on this sidewalk and over in their neighborhood where their house was, his father and many neighborhood people found Jose Luis cutting open animals, studying them, watching them die. Oh, Dad, I just want to see how they work. Zero remorse for killing a living creature. Could be a neighborhood dog or a cat, rat, whatever he could find. When he was 8, he shot his neighbor in the face with a pellet gun because he was bothering him. Blinded the kid for life. Tried to kill him. But when he was 12, changed everything. Now, since you've read the book The Devil in the White City, Charlie, tell me what was Thomas Edison's greatest invention ever? Thomas Edison's greatest invention. Everybody says 100% of the time Thomas Edison's greatest invention was a light bulb. I call BS. That's what our history books tell us. And I call BS because I know for a fact he stole it from a Canadian. He didn't develop the light bulb. A Canadian did. And Edison took it and sold it as his own. But more importantly, I say the greatest invention Thomas Edison ever gave us is what he exhibited at the World's Fair. In order to defeat Nikola Tesla, to prove direct current was stronger than Tesla's, he gave the world the electric chair. Thomas Edison, the great scientist. Wow, how our history books forgot to tell us that when we were kids. But he developed the most heinous killing machine ever. And we still use it today. Isn't that nice? Well, guess what? Jose Luis, at the age of 12, in his father's electrical room, developed Edison's chair. Not kidding. A little boy from the neighborhood comes to the clinic one day and says, Mr. Avellanal, you got to come home, sir. Your wife's calling for you. It's a major emergency. You know, and back then, we're talking 1915 here, folks. 1915 fathers, especially if their child was weird, they had very little to do with the child, and they left that to the wife, okay? So now he's got to go home and deal with something this crazy kid has done. He runs to the back room, and according to what we've read, his wife was going, do something with that boy. And he opens the door, and he sees a chair in the middle of the room, and a big giant generator behind it full of copper wire. And by the way, it's important to note that starting at the age of 8, Jose Luis fell in love with one book written by Mary Shelley. Dr. Frankenstein was his favorite novel. Over on the wall was a U-shaped Frankenstein flip switch. Oh, I almost forgot the most important fact. There was the 13-year-old neighbor kid strapped to the chair, burnt to a crisp from head to toe. But he wasn't dead. He wasn't dead because Jose Luis, at age 12, built Edison's electric chair, but didn't use his form of electricity. He used alternating current from Tesla. And he forgot the most important fact: the wet sponge under the metal helmet. Why is that so important? Because of Tesla's discovery, electromagnetic energy. Celebration, by the way. And in 1917, they installed that window on opening day, and they called it the heartbeat of the Cuban Club. The heartbeat of El Ciclo Cubano. My 2 cents, my opinion. Every night you get that brighter image on your screen, shows you it still is the heartbeat of the Cuban Club. That's just my belief. Now, for Fredo J. Coley, his nickname was El Fumador, which means
Smoker.
The smoker. There were 700 million cigars rolled here a year. How much did that guy smoke to get that nickname? I'm guessing a lot. But El Fumador was an extremely powerful man, one of only 2 men to be board president twice. But he stood up in that meeting and by another board member was accused of theft. Stealing from your own people, sir, how dare you? And from what we read from their writing, a fist fight broke out. A gun showed up, and one of those two men was shot in the face at point blank range. That man that was shot in the face that night was a founding father of this building. He was a founding father of this city. And guess what? He doesn't want you in his house. He's got 3 ways to let you know he doesn't want you to come inside. Let me apologize right now. If you see him with his face blown wide open, it ain't pretty. He's missing his lower jaw, but he might still try to talk to you. 2, you may be touched tonight, especially if you're a lady, especially if you're a brunette, or have any Hispanic or Latin heritage. I am not kidding you. Typically, it's flirtatious. Ladies get touched if they have an exposed knee, rub on the neck, a flip of the hair. They might even hear their name called from behind, and they turn around and nobody's there. But it's not always nice either. 2 Halloweens ago, I had my life changed on this very tour. Had 43 people to witness this event. Over to my right, there was a young, attractive couple. And the girl had very dark hair and darker skin, and I said, "You're Latin, right?" And she goes, "Yeah." And I said, "You can get touched tonight." She goes, "Okay, cool." We go inside. And about 5 minutes later, it was no longer cool. She got very queasy. She got nauseous. She started feeling flushed like a fever, very hot. And then she felt like she got punched in the spine. She comes running outside. Now folks, I'm a professional actor by trade. I've been asked a great deal of times in my career to recreate the emotion of fear. I thought I knew how to do that but I didn't until I saw her. I'd never seen somebody so afraid for their life. She was hyperventilating, she couldn't speak, she couldn't cry, nothing could come out of her mouth for about 1.5 minutes. Finally, when she could catch her breath, she described what had just taken place that I just told you. She proceeds to lift up her shirt and expose 3 long scratches that went from her neck to her waistline. 2 went down the middle of her spine like that, and 1 came across the other way. If you don't believe me, the pictures of her spine are on our Facebook page. You can go look at them yourself. And I looked at her and I said, I don't know still to this day why I said it the way I did. I said, "Who are you?" She then proceeds to tell me she was the granddaughter of the Sicilian mafia boss that ran this town and butted heads every day with these men. I said, "Wait a minute, wait. You're the granddaughter of the boss that hated these men. Oh, wow." At the end of that speech, the gravedigger has one thing to say. And to this day, without opening the text and looking at the line, I can't tell you what I was supposed to say on opening night. I was so embarrassed. I was 35. I left the stage crying like a child. It was a horrible, horrible experience. Now I want you all to look around. In 1929, you can almost feel the wealth and opulence that was here inside of these walls. A young actor wants to get to Broadway. At the height of the boom of the 20s, the stock market has not yet crashed. Prohibition is still in effect. So the money is still flowing. So this kid has a dream, an idea. He writes his own show, stars himself in the lead role, helps direct it, work on the props, the costumes, and the set. And yet on opening night, guess who forgets his line? The kid who wrote the show forgot his own words. How embarrassed would you be, Leslie? Yeah, pretty bad. Embarrassed enough to come back at night and kill yourself? No. There used to be a catwalk over the stage. According to what we've learned, he came back in the wee hours of the morning, draped a rope around the catwalk, put it around his neck, and jumped. The staff of the Cuban Club found him hanging over center stage the following morning. Guess, right? I shouldn't have done that. Don't judge. I should be open-minded more than anybody, right? Before I ever mentioned shadow people, before I ever mentioned negative energy, I asked everybody to come to a stop, take a deep breath, and this kid steps forward and he goes, "There's 3 of them behind you." And I went, "3 what?" And he got upset with me. He goes, "You know exactly what I'm talking about. You've seen the shadows, and they don't like us here. They especially don't like you." And he goes, "They're all over you." At the time he says they're all over you, I started getting chills all over my arms. I've done this for 4 years. I know when they're with me. And frankly, I can feel them right this very second. Again, so I do apologize that you can't go and explore this space, but you can obviously take pictures. This space to me is the most interesting because of the things that have happened up here. I talk about the darkness on the floor below us, but I believe there's a love attachment to this floor. I have no idea how many people got married on this floor, or were at a party and met the love of their life on this floor. My friend Frank, that heard the dancing and smelled the paella when he was 14 years old, back in the 30s, he did that because of this wall. This wall is now just windows, but those windows used to be French doors. Those French doors have private balconies. So on party nights, every one of those French doors was wide open, obviously for ventilation, but the Cubans were very prideful. If you don't know any Cuban people, they're very prideful. And back then, they wanted everybody to know who built the city. They were the cream of the crop, because at this wall it was airing ghost hunters. And when Travel Channel and all the TV stations owned under the one umbrella, I think it's NBC that owns it, all of those stations that had paranormal TV shows, all the shows were ranked based on, all the buildings from shows were ranked by the Travel Channel. And the Travel Channel is who said the Cuban Club was the 4th most haunted building in the country. All right, so let's clear that. Now let's go to the episode. Now, Katrina, I would like to ask for just a brief moment to put the light down for me, please, because this is a...
Picture right here. You come on out. Come and say hello to me. I'm in high school.